Things in our area, the Dearne Valley, South Yorkshire, began to change dramatically from the late 70s. There was an economic slump. Coal mines were deemed to be becoming uneconomic. Same with the steel industry, the railways, all the local industries that people relied upon for employment. But the watershed, the main change, was the miners' strike of 84-85. Started in the Dearne Valley in Cortonwood. That started because the NCB, the National Coal Board, as it then was, wanted to close Cortonwood.
Were you in favour of the strike?
Obvious, because let's face it, we were paid for us living. That was the top and bottom of it, we were paid for us living, and it was our living. In a rural place like this, once pit finishes, there was nothing and there were no more firms. I mean, there is now because they built it same place where pits were, but there was nothing. So it means to say, you change occupation altogether, and as you've got like our 160, how can you start another job somewhere else, not know about it, and have another career? So you're fighting for your living and your life.
Yeah. There was a disagreement between the National Coal Board and the National Union of Mine Workers about the viability of Cortonwood Colliery. The National Union of Mine Workers said it was producing coal, could produce coal for many years to come. The National Coal Board said it wasn't producing coal at a price that coal's consumers could afford to pay. So the disagreement started a strike. The strike became national.
I thought it was surreal to me to start with. I've been on strike before, and I knew the info that we were getting back that it wasn't going to be a short strike, but I didn't think it was going to be as long as it was. But I think that they were better equipped for strike than we were. Your governments and everything, your industry.
I won't talk a lot about the strike, but it divided mining communities from the rest of the country. The media, the government chose to portray the miners in a certain light. Indeed, the Prime Minister of the day, Margaret Thatcher, called miners the enemy within. So miners had moved from being the aristocracy of labour, looked up to, admired by other workers in this country, to being called the enemy within. We were the enemy of the rest of England.
It was an amazing amount of support we got. people coming out and basically, you know, clapping you, you know, offering support, some financial, you know, and it was just it was a bit of a roller coaster ride. It was the fact that you got support from places where you probably wouldn't have thought that you'd have got it. You'd expect it here on your doorstep, but when you started going down south, you know, away from all coal fields, then you know, you'd expect it to dwindle, but it was, to a certain extent, it was totally different. You got a hell of a lot of support from places where you weren't expecting it from.
There were that, weren't that miners and people
Well,
from all over the world
to
actually
Germany,
support,
French, Australian, Italians. We had a Swiss reporters that used to come and talk. We had a kid called Magnus Harkeland, they were from Foursquare in Sweden, from their national television, and he even insisted going picketing with us.
I mean, I was one of them what carried Thatcher's coffin. I've still got pictures somewhere it out. You know, we made a plywood coffin, it said reserved for Margaret Thatcher on it.
Totally demoralised at the end of the day. People were extremely upset. They were very brave in terms of how they'd all held together during the strike, all respected each other and all marched back to their collieries as one, showing how solid they'd been during the strike.
In a very, very short period from 85 to about 92, the coal industry all but disappeared. Certainly in Barnsley and the Dearne Valley, but nearly from the whole of South Yorkshire. I think currently there are only 2 working coal mines in the whole of Yorkshire, employing something like 4,000 men, where before the coal industry in Yorkshire, before 85, employed something of the order of 60, 70,000 men.
Every mine accepts that at some stage a mine will close. Mining is an extractive industry, and ultimately there is a limited life to any colliery. As that coal becomes too hard to work, becomes exhausted, becomes too far away from the shaft to make it profitable to work, then there is a need for collieries to close at some stage and hopefully new ones to open and be to replace those pits. The whole closure programme from the strike of 1984-85 emanated from a political decision and not from a practical mining decision.
Obviously there were a lot of people that didn't know anything but mining, and for them, the good workers worked all their life and they became unemployed and they stayed unemployed, you know, because they didn't know which way to turn. They were confused, if you like. And so basically there was that element that came out in the community, which were a shame because they'd always been good workers. There were those people that, you know, literally the older people that had worked hours and hours overtime. You might think this is unscientific and I can't prove it, but the stats on it, the amount of people that died just after the pit closing because they couldn't wind down. The way of life just literally stopped from an hectic working life, daily life, and the amount of people, even people in the 40s and 50s, that we seem to bury, you know, that was a traumatic time for the thing.
And when pit closed, I can only say he pined himself away because he used to go to the club in the afternoon and at night, like a lot of them did, but it wore off novelty, you know, because they weren't used to it. They didn't go to pit in afternoon and night, to the club at afternoon and night. And that man spent, up to him dying, he spent his life in summer, sat on wall, opposite my house, I can see now, sat on wall, his front garden wall, speaking to anybody that went up and anybody that went down. And in winter, he spent the winter stood upstairs in front bedroom window with lace curtains back, watching the world go by. And I can't say whatever poorly, he just died. And it was,
He just sent to get
and I
more
can
career,
honestly
but he
say,
wasn't an old man either.
it's, no, we weren't told.
No.
And I can honestly say it was saddest thing, one of the saddest things I ever knew that came out. It was terrible.
It's like it's somebody being a victim of a crime. They weren't ready for what happened. You know, they weren't. We were never going to lose. We were never ever going to lose, and then all of a sudden we lost. And so it came as such a shock to people. But some got on with it. Some got other employment elsewhere. Some love to be on dole. Oh, look at this, what I've got. And paying money and all. Great. There were a lot of like that, I've got to be honest with you. But there were a lot of people shook their shoulders and got on with it, and they've made themselves a good
A good living,
living
since
yeah.
that, yeah.